Sina Grace got more chances at Marvel than he earned and squandered them all. In the end, even gay comic readers hate his take on the character. Sina Grace's Iceman isn't divisive, it's universally hated. Lots of interesting news from the world of comics the past week. Marvel will reintroduce their Ultimate Universe in the pages of Miles Morales' Spider-Man. I'll explain why it's a terrible idea. Sina Grace fired shots at Marvel Comics and EIC Cebulski to celebrate Pride Month. Multiple new comics were announced for DC Black Label. I also have some quick hits on George Perez, Marvel Comics 1000, and Avengers Endgame's final box office projections. Before I get started, I want to shout out the newest subscribers to Thinking Critical YouTube. Thank you very much to TJ Williams, Lord Reginald II, Marwa Salah, C. Kim, Comictopia New Mexico, a fellow comic book YouTuber, Joe Moore, and Loose Tog. Thinking Critical is only successful thanks to all the channel viewers and subscribers. Thank you all very much. Now it's time for the news. The following is from Newsarama.com. 3 years after its seeming closure in the final moments of Secret Wars, the Ultimate Universe will be returning in a big way in September's Miles Morales number 10, according to the series writer Saladin Ahmed. Without getting into too much detail, the Ultimate Universe returns in a big way with Miles Morales Spider-Man number 10, Ahmed tells Newsarama. Since Secret Wars' finale in early 2016, the Ultimate Universe has appeared sparingly in the form of characters jumping to the main Marvel U, though a more substantial resurrection of the Ultimate Universe occurred briefly in the finale of Spider-Man 2. And Miles is finally going to start to reckon with the weird history he has coming from another dimension. Ahmed continued. On the cover, we see the Ultimate Green Goblin, aka Norman Osborn, in his monstrous form, but there's a force behind him that we only know as Ultimatum. From this Mahmoud Asrar drawn cover, the Ultimatum looks like the Ultimate's Hank Pym or someone wearing his costume. This new Ultimatum character also shares a name with the 2009 Ultimate Universe limited series by Jeff Loeb and David Finch, which featured Magneto attempting to destroy the world after the apparent deaths of his children, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. The solicitation for Miles Morales Spider-Man number 10 mentions a mystery dating back to Miles' first appearance that will be answered, and the reveal of a terrifying villain destined to become one of Miles' greatest adversaries. Fans of Marvel's Ultimate Universe are likely very excited about this news. I could get on board if any other Marvel creator was spearheading the return. I personally stopped following most creators on social media. I find it makes being a fan of the industry much easier. Saladin Ahmed is one creator who burned his bridge with me with constant racism, bigotry, race baiting, and general prattle about politics and religion on social media. I'm surprised Marvel EIC Cebulski is giving him this project, to be perfectly honest. He currently writes the Miles Morales Spider-Man series, and the results are middling at best. 33,000 units shipped is okay for a B or C-list character. For a Spidey book, it's downright abysmal, especially coming off the success of the recent animated Miles Morales film from Sony. The numbers bear out. I'm not the only reader who refuses to buy books with Saladin Ahmed's name on the title. The Ultimate Universe deserves a less divisive figure to relaunch it and give it a chance to succeed moving forward. Saladin Ahmed is a terrible choice. The leadership team at Marvel need to start learning from their past mistakes. CBR.com reported on former Iceman writer Sina Grace's burial of Marvel and his treatment at the company. After detailing the backlash he received for his work on Iceman, Grace wrote, "Between Iceman's cancellation and its subsequent revival, Marvel reached out and said they noticed threatening behavior on my Twitter account only after asking me to send proof of all the nasty shit popping online." One editor called, "These conversations always happen over the phone, offering to provide tips and tricks to deal with cyberbullying. I cut him off. All he was going to do was tell me how to fend for myself. I needed Marvel to stand by me with more work opportunities to show the trolls that I was more than a diversity hire. We'll keep you in mind." I got so tired of that sentence. Even after a year of the new editor-in-chief saying I was talented and needed to be on a book that wasn't the gay character, he continued, "The only assignment I got outside of Iceman was 6 pages long about a version of Wolverine where he had diamond claws. Fabulous? Yes. Heterosexual? Yes. Still kind of the gay character though. We as creators are strongly encouraged to build a platform on social media and use it to promote work-for-hire projects owned by massive corporations. But when the going gets tough, these dudes get going real quick. As far as Grace's first statement regarding social media, it sounds like Marvel did the right thing. The unnamed editor tried to give him the tools necessary to deal with cyberbullying. It's his personal Twitter account, not a Marvel corporate account. He should be able to handle his interactions on social media on his own. He's a grown man. I'm sure some of it wasn't very nice. That's the nature of social media in today's climate. He needs to grow thicker skin and learn to mute, block, or ignore rude people. I'm surprised Sina Grace doesn't acknowledge he was a diversity hire. He's never written a successful comic series by any measure, yet he got hired by Marvel to write a solo series for their newest gay character, which is fine. Marvel can hire whoever they want to write Iceman. It was on Grace to seize the opportunity and make the most of it. Instead, he turned Bobby Drake from a beloved superhero who happens to be newly out of the closet into a collection of the worst cliches about gay men. He needs to own his own failure and learn from it, or his days in the industry are numbered. I disagree with many of C.B. Cebulski's decisions, but Grace gave him no choice. Sina Grace got more chances at Marvel than he earned and squandered them all. In the end, even gay comic readers hate his take on the character. Sina Grace's Iceman isn't divisive, it's universally hated. CBR.com also reported on the upcoming DC Black Label fantasy series The Last God. This fall, DC is taking a turn towards high fantasy. Released under DC Black Label, The Last God by writer Philip Kennedy Johnson, artist Riccardo Federici, and colorist Dean White will explore a kingdom that must reckon with the demons of its past, figuratively and literally. This is a terrifying horror story told in a stunning epic fantasy world. Set in two different generations, it follows a mighty fellowship of heroes that travels beyond the borders of creation to kill a god, and the next generation, who learn their predecessors aren't the heroes the world believes them to be. Johnson said in a statement, "This series features mind-blowing, terrifying art by Riccardo Federici, colorist Dean White, and letterer Tom Napolitano, three absolute geniuses in their fields, and epic world-building so deep and rich that it exists beyond the bounds of the page." He continued, "Fans of D&D, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and Magic the Gathering, and anyone who enjoys deep dives into fantasy lore, you will be extremely well served with The Last God. Stay tuned." This is part of the first wave of new DC Black Label books following the death of Vertigo and DC restructuring their publishing lines. The description of the series and the words of writer Philip Kennedy Johnson sound promising, but I can't shake the feeling that some of the books earmarked for Vertigo under the leadership of Mark Doyle and Andy Curry are sneaking into DC Black Label. If I see either of their names anywhere near this series, I won't consider reading it. Their incompetence and insistence on pushing fringe ideology through the pages of Vertigo killed an industry icon. The fact that neither man is fired speaks volumes about Dan Didio and Jim Lee's supreme levels of incompetence. Also from the pages of CBR.com, Lock and Key's Joe Hill is launching a line of pop-up horror comics at DC Black Label. "I've always been a comic book writer first," Hill told Entertainment Weekly. "When I started writing comics, I felt almost instantly that I had discovered my element. It was the version of writing I liked best. I felt, when I worked in comics, that my strengths were amplified and the stuff I struggled with as a writer almost completely vanished. Working on Lock and Key was one of the most satisfying creative experiences of my life, but it's tremendously exciting to get back into it. Scripting again, working with artists, working with other writers. Working in comics is the closest you can get as a storyteller to feeling like what it must be like to be in the Rolling Stones." Hill House Comics will launch with 5 limited series, Basketful of Heads by Hill and artist Leo Macas, The Dollhouse Family by writer Mike Carey and artist Peter Gross, The Low Low Woods, written by Carmen Maria Machado and illustrated by Danny, Daphne Byrne by writer Laura Marks and artist Kelly Jones, and Plunge, written by Hill and an artist to be named at a later date. Also, each limited series will include a 2-page backup titled Sea Dogs, which will be written by Hill. Some of the previous Vertigo creators collaborating at Hill House include Jones on Swamp Thing and Carrion Gross on Lucifer. Joe Hill is an accomplished author and son of horror legend Stephen King. He's best known in comics for his work on IDW's Lock and Key. It's a well-regarded series that's currently being developed for Netflix after being passed over by Fox and Hulu. Despite its reputation and history, I'm still hesitant to get on board after the recent changes of DC Black Label, which was originally intended to feature DC's premier creative talent crafting Elseworld stories with the best characters. As I mentioned earlier, if the names Mark Doyle or Andy Corey touch a single issue on any of the 5 series, I'm not supporting one of them. Marvel Comics' latest scheme to bilk customers out of their money with overpriced comics and gimmick marketing, Marvel Comics 1000, just got a lot more slimy. They recently announced the first 23 of what is sure to be 50+ variant covers. At this point, I don't feel bad for any customers or retailers that get taken for a ride with Marvel's BS. We all know what Marvel's doing. If you want to get ripped off with a fake issue 1000 and associated variant cover schemes, that's on you. If you're hoping to hear my review of Marvel Comics 1000 on the channel, prepare to be disappointed. I won't buy that book with Doc's money, let alone my own. CB Cebulski makes Dan Didio and Jim Lee look like Jim Shooter. He's the biggest dunce in the business. Comicbook.com recently reported on legendary creator George Perez's issues with DC during his short-lived run on Superman during New 52. Prolific comic book creator George Perez says his short-lived stint on Superman, relaunched as part of DC Comics New 52 in 2011, soured him on corporate comics and marked the first time in his decade-spanning career he didn't care. I think the only time I had bitterness or uncomfortable feelings working was more recently, because the fact the industry had changed so much, and now it's corporate comics. We're sometimes being asked not to create comics, but to manufacture comics, Perez said at Niagara Falls Comic Con. And that bothered me during my run on Superman, the New 52 Superman. It was a book being done by committee, and I don't think I really got a chance to really create as opposed to, follow the dictates of what we have in the mind, put your name on it. Yet they couldn't make up their minds what they wanted from day one. So that started to sour me. Pulling double duty as writer and penciler for the book's first 3 issues, Perez stayed on as writer for another 3 issues. By its 7th issue, Perez was off the book entirely. I hate to hear a story like this from a legend like George Perez. It goes to show that no matter your accomplishments, corporate interference can always be an issue. George Perez could have had an amazing run on Superman, but ended up feeling bitter and uncomfortable in the end. With his recent retirement from illustrating, we'll never get to see what a full Superman run would look like. Hopefully he'll get another chance to write the character and get the bitter taste out of his mouth and show readers what his Superman would look like. SuperheroHype.com is reporting Avengers Endgame will fall short of Avatar's worldwide box office record. Whatever it takes may not be good enough for Avengers to grab one last world record. Marvel Studios re-released Avengers Endgame into theaters for its Bring Back event, which was a fairly transparent attempt to catch up to Avatar's worldwide box office mark. However, the early returns from this weekend suggest that Endgame will not be winning the race anytime soon. According to Deadline, Endgame will finish the weekend with $6.3 million and bring its domestic total up to $842.1 million. But even if Endgame receives a significant boost from Spider-Man Far From Home next week, it may still fall $22 to $27 million shy of Avatar's $2.78 billion. One of the key reasons is that Endgame hasn't quite been able to match Avatar's performance in countries outside of the US and China. Endgame played extraordinarily well on the world stage, but Avatar appears to be safe for now. When Endgame released, many expected it to break Avatar's all-time box office record. Avatar was the first movie filmed and released in the newest 3D format. It was a real boon to the final box office tally. I'm surprised Endgame didn't perform up to Avatar's level outside the US and China. But all records are meant to be broken. I would have thought the upcoming Star Wars new trilogy finale would have a shot, but interest in the franchise appears to be at an all-time low after The Last Jedi. I'll be shocked if any MCU film ever comes close to the final box office of Endgame. We probably haven't even heard of the film that ultimately breaks Avatar's worldwide box office record. There you have it, folks. Saladin Ahmed is relaunching the Ultimates universe in the pages of Miles Morales' Spider-Man. I can't think of a more divisive creator for the job. Sina Grace burned his Marvel bridge to dust to celebrate the end of Pride Month. In the end, he appears to be his own worst enemy. DC Black Label is announcing a plethora of new projects after DC restructured their publishing lines. It feels like they're sneaking their second wave of planned Vertigo books into DC Black Label, and I'm skeptical of all the new projects. Marvel Comics is taking their pricing and variant cover schemes to the next level with their fake issue 1000. Corporate interference ruined any chance of a prolonged run by George Perez on Superman. It appears Avengers Endgame will not break Avatar's worldwide box office record. Thank you very much for tuning into the video, and I hope to see you all again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.